There is no limit specified in the National Electrical Code for stacking box extensions. Article 314.22 does not mention any restriction on the number of box extensions that can be added to an electrical box. However, this does not mean that you can add an unlimited number of extensions without considering other factors. Several key aspects must be taken into account to ensure a safe and code-compliant electrical installation even when stacking box extensions. Firstly, box fill calculations are paramount. The National Electrical Code specifies rules for calculating the maximum number of conductors, devices, and fittings allowed in an electrical box. These rules are designed to prevent overheating and ensure sufficient space for safe wiring practices. When adding box extensions, the volume of each extension must be included in the overall box fill calculation. This is typically found in the manufacturer's specifications or in the box extension itself, usually expressed in cubic inches. You must ensure that the total volume of the original box plus all extensions is sufficient to accommodate all conductors, devices such as receptacles or switches, and any internal cable clamps or fittings. Article 314.16 outlines the requirements for box fill calculations in detail. Secondly, consider the mechanical support and integrity of the installation. While the code doesn't limit the number of extensions, adding too many extensions could compromise the structural integrity of the box assembly. The box must be securely mounted, and the extensions must be properly attached to both the original box and each other. It is essential to use listed or approved connectors and fasteners designed for this purpose. The weight of the conductors and devices within the extended box must also be considered. Excessive weight can place strain on the mounting means and potentially cause the box to detach from the wall or ceiling. It is recommended to use additional support if the extended box assembly is particularly heavy or if it is subject to vibration or physical stress. Thirdly, accessibility of connections must be maintained. The National Electrical Code requires that all electrical connections be accessible for inspection and maintenance. Adding multiple box extensions should not obstruct access to the connections within the box. Ensure that the cover plate can be easily removed and that the wiring is readily accessible for testing and troubleshooting. If the extensions create a situation where access is restricted, it may be necessary to re-evaluate the design and consider alternative wiring methods. Fourthly, conductor bending space is also critical. Article 314.16b addresses conductor bending space within boxes. Conductors must not be bent too sharply, as this can damage the insulation and increase the risk of electrical shorts. The box, including any extensions, must provide adequate space for conductors to be bent and routed without stressing the insulation. Consult the NEC tables for minimum bending radii based on conductor size and voltage. If adding extensions reduces the available bending space below the code minimums, it may be necessary to use a larger box or a different wiring configuration. Fifthly, device mounting considerations are another key aspect. When installing devices such as receptacles or switches in box extensions, ensure that the devices are securely mounted to the box. The mounting screws must engage properly with the box or with a listed device mounting bracket. Avoid over-tightening the screws, as this can damage the box or the device. If the box extensions are not designed to accommodate standard device mounting screws, use appropriate adapters or bracket. Sixthly, consider the listing and labeling of the box and extensions. Only use box extensions that are listed and labeled for their intended purpose. The listing mark indicates that the product has been tested and certified by a recognized testing laboratory to meet applicable safety standards. The labeling provides important information about the product, such as its volume, material, and intended use. Using unlisted or improperly labeled box extensions can create a safety hazard and may violate local electrical codes. Seventhly, grounding and bonding is an important point. Ensure that the grounding and bonding conductors are properly connected to the box and to all devices within the box, including any extensions. The grounding system provides a low impedance path for fault current, which helps to protect against electrical shock and fire hazards. All metal boxes and metal box extensions must be grounded in accordance with Article 250 of the National Electrical Code. Use appropriately sized grounding conductors and approved grounding connectors. Eighthly, compatibility of materials is important. Ensure that the box extensions are made of materials that are compatible with the existing box and the surrounding environment. For example, if the original box is made of metal, it is generally best to use metal box extensions. If the box is located in a corrosive environment, use box extensions made of corrosion-resistant materials. Mixing incompatible materials can lead to premature failure of the installation. Ninthly, consider the full requirements of conduit bodies. Although the original question specifically asked about box extensions, it is worth noting that similar considerations apply to conduit bodies, also known as conduit. Conduit bodies are used to provide access to conductors within a conduit run. Like boxes, conduit bodies have fill limitations that must be observed. Article 314.16 also applies to conduit bodies, and the volume of the conduit body must be included in the overall fill calculation. The same principles of mechanical support, accessibility, bending space, and grounding apply to conduit bodies as well. Tenthly, consider the impact of box extensions on fire stopping. In some cases, electrical boxes may penetrate fire-rated walls or ceilings. Adding box extensions to these boxes can affect the fire resistance rating of the assembly. It is essential to maintain the integrity of the fire-stopping system when installing box extensions. This may require the use of fire-rated box extensions or the application of fire-stopping materials around the box and extensions. Consult the local building codes and fire codes for specific requirements. 11thly, always consult with a qualified electrician. Electrical work can be dangerous, and it is essential to have a thorough understanding of the National Electrical Code and local electrical codes before undertaking any electrical project. If you are unsure about any aspect of the installation, consult with a qualified electrician. A licensed electrician can assess the specific circumstances of the installation and provide guidance on the proper methods and materials to use. They can also perform the necessary calculations and tests to ensure that the installation is safe and code compliant. In summary, while the National Electrical Code does not explicitly prohibit stacking box extensions, it is crucial to consider various factors to ensure a safe and code-compliant installation. These factors include box fill calculations, mechanical support, accessibility, conductor bending space, device mounting, listing and labeling, grounding and bonding, compatibility of materials, and the impact on fire stopping. Always consult with a qualified electrician if you have any questions or concerns. Finally, always follow manufacturer's instructions for installing box extensions. The manufacturer's instructions may provide specific guidance on the proper installation methods and any limitations on the use of their products. Adhering to the manufacturer's instructions can help to ensure a safe and reliable installation. Consider the long-term effects of adding box extensions. Over time, the connections within the box may loosen or corrode. It is important to periodically inspect the connections and tighten them as needed. Also, be aware that adding box extensions may make it more difficult to access the wiring for future modifications or repairs. Consider whether there are alternative wiring methods that would be more suitable for the long term. Remember, electrical codes and standards are constantly evolving. It is important to stay up to date on the latest changes and interpretations. Subscribe to industry publications, attend continuing education courses, and consult with electrical inspectors to stay informed. Staying informed will help you to ensure that your electrical installations are safe, code compliant, and reliable. Before commencing any electrical work, always de-energize the circuit. This can be achieved by turning off the circuit breaker or removing the fuse that supplies power to the circuit. Use a voltage tester to verify that the circuit is de-energized before touching any wires or components. This will help to prevent electrical shock. It's important to note that electrical codes can vary from jurisdiction to jurisdiction. Always check with your local building department or electrical inspector to determine the specific requirements in your area. Local codes may be more restrictive than the National Electrical Code. Understanding the specific requirements in your area is essential for ensuring compliance and safety. Be aware that some jurisdictions may require a permit for certain types of electrical work. Check with your local building department to determine whether a permit is required for your project. Obtaining a permit can help to ensure that the work is inspected and approved by qualified professionals. Consider the aesthetic appearance of the installation. While safety is the primary concern, it is also important to consider the aesthetic appearance of the installation. Adding multiple box extensions can sometimes create an unsightly appearance. Try to conceal the box extensions as much as possible or use decorative covers to improve the overall appearance. Consider the potential for future expansion. If you anticipate adding more wiring or devices to the box in the future, it may be wise to use a larger box to begin with. This can help to avoid the need for adding box extensions later on.